The most exciting thing we've happened on one of those mobiles in the camp is woken up with lions killing a zebra just right by the main table. And we woke up with, we had the whole night of lions just ripping this poor zebra apart and all the noise that lions make. But of course, in the morning, no one could get out of their tents. No one could have their coffee. No one could do anything. And we didn't have to move for most part of that morning because we had 15 lions just sitting there, and we could, the guests were just lying in bed watching this spectacle of lions sort of chewing through this zebra.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Payne, and this is episode 446 of F-Stop, Collaborate, and Listen, a podcast that goes far beyond camera gear with candid, in-depth conversations exploring creativity, motivation, inspiration, and the craft of photography. Each week, I sit down with professional photographers, industry insiders, and passionate creatives to dig into the why behind the work. My guest this week is Devon Jenkin, a Zimbabwe-born safari guide, conservationist, and fine art wildlife photographer whose work bridges storytelling, education, and purpose. In this conversation, we explore how Devon's upbringing in the African bush, his guiding experience in Botswana, his deep respect for wild places have all shaped the way that he creates photographs that do more than just look beautiful. They invite reflection and inspire protection. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to thank this week's sponsor, Luminar Neo. If you've ever felt like Lightroom is a little too overwhelming or complex for your editing needs, Luminar might be exactly what you're looking for. It's designed for both newcomers and experienced photographers alike, with an intuitive, clean user interface that actually helps you get the job done faster. You can use Luminar as a standalone editor or plug it right into your existing Lightroom workflow to enhance specific steps. I've tested it myself, and I think it's a great alternative for anyone wanting a more approachable editing experience without sacrificing creative power. Check it out. There's a link in today's show notes. Okay, here's my conversation with Devon Jenkin. All right, Devon Jenkin, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks very much. It's great to be here, Matt.
Awesome, man. I'm really excited for this. I've been making an effort to try to get more wildlife photographers on the podcast because I know that my listeners love doing wildlife photography, and it's something that I'm more and more interested in over the years. And so I think this is going to be a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Well, for people who aren't familiar with you, why don't you go and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Devon Jenkin. I'm 38. I grew up in the heart of Southern Africa in Zimbabwe. Very, very fortunate to have a childhood which involved a lot of camping, a lot of adventure, and that sort of got my nose into being into nature a lot. I currently live in Germany. I'm married with two beautiful daughters, 10 and 5 years old. I got into photography around the age of 12. My dad gave me his old Pentax 35mm film camera. He gave me some instructions on how to take pictures and 3 rolls of film, a notebook and a pen, and said, make sure you record every idea that you're trying to capture. And in those, when I was 12, Zimbabwe was going through some big economic problems. Still is today, but back then it was quite horrific. So those 3 rolls of film sort of took, 3-4 months before we could get them developed. And when we did, we opened up the notebook and looked back at those notes I made on each picture, and the penny dropped that this is, something so tangible that you can go out and capture whatever you wanted to. And that's stuck with me from then. And yeah, that's how I got into photography in the beginning. It led to a career in film guiding and taking out film crews and being out in the wild, basically. So
nice.
That's the start of it, and sort of an all-round effect.
Awesome, man. What was it like growing up in Zimbabwe? I feel like almost no one that I know has even been to Zimbabwe. So what was that like?
It was to compare it now that I live in Germany to how I see people have grown up here, I think we're some of the most privileged people on the world to grow up in a country that's so diverse with its nature and has such great, wonderful, friendly people. They're really, really lucky. I had adventurous parents as well, so we went camping. Every holidays we were out camping. We have a big lake in the north of the country called Lake Kariba, where we take out a houseboat, twice a year and stay on the houseboat for sort of 2-3 weeks, go climbing mountains, rivers. My parents ran pet shops. So my dad was a farmer, and my mum ran pet shops where she bred aquarium fish and birds and stuff like that. Sort of cringe at the bird breeding now. But, exotic parrots and stuff like that. So we grew up in a menagerie of animals. So your normal farm animals, but then everything that went along with the pet shop, the hamsters, the guinea pigs, the fish, the bunnies. But yeah, life was a continuous exploration of, camping trips and exploring not only Zimbabwe, but it's right in the hub of Southern Africa. So we got to go and see South Africa, Mozambique, Botswana, Zambia. It was a continuous just journey. And, sometimes we thought parents just had us kids so they had someone to put up and break down the tents, because that, from an early age, that was our jobs and on the camping trips. But it was Zimbabwe. Then it went through its hardest time around 99, 2000. So a lot of bad things happened, and the sort of land repossessions sort of took hold. So we went through all of that, which I wouldn't change at all, because it's you come out of it stronger and more resilient. Years without petrol and gas and stuff like that. We famously say that we always can make a plan. You get on and get out. So yeah, very privileged childhood, and lots of nature was the call of it. Yeah.
Awesome. I suppose going on all these camping trips really set you up for success in terms of finding ways to learn how to manage remote camps in East Africa, which is what you eventually ended up doing. How did all this lead to you guiding and getting more and more into the safari-based photography and eventually building a conservation-focused brand?
Right. So, where did it all start? So after schooling in Zimbabwe, there wasn't, because of the economic problems, there wasn't many job opportunities. I had actually lined myself up to go into hunting, and the reason was that I had an older stepbrother, and he had been a hunter, and it was kind of this glorified position that you could go and take. It's the ultimate bush guy kind of feel, and he, apart from hunting, also managed safari camps. So we spent, a few holidays in those later years in the safari camps, and everything just clicked. The excitement of being on a game drive and what's around the next corner, and how many bird species you can tick off in a game drive, and weather lions, and because he ran the camps, we got to position ourselves in some pretty cool situations. Lions hunting buffalo at night. We could take the vehicles out and go and sit with them and watch that. So he had gone to East Africa a few years before I finished school, and the year I finished, he got married in the Ngorongoro crater. Actually, I followed, went for the wedding, and then luckily, I look back now, I missed the apprenticeship intake for the hunting camp. I sat around for a few months, and then I got a job running a remote camp out in Lake Victoria, so right between Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And this island camp was remote. There was no internet, there was no signal, and it was kind of a transition between one owner and the next owner. And I was working for the new owner, so there was this gap where we had no guests, and we had no food, and I had to survive by fishing. And it's like this tropical island, so 242 square kilometers, if I remember rightly. And so I was there alone for 3 months while this transition was happening, and just surviving with fishing off the rocks. And just having that time to myself in nature was this kind of eye-opening moment. Obviously, I explored and been camping and done all of that in my childhood, but to be completely alone and vulnerable on this island, just and without the modern day distractions, there's no cell phone signal unless you stood on a rock facing east, 2 meters into the water, you could get a bar of signal, and so there was no distractions, and I completely tuned into nature there, and it was a life-changing experience, really, because I knew then that I needed to be out in space, and the feeling you get when you tune into your surroundings like that is quite remarkable. So that never left me. I was on that island for a year. It did get busier, so I didn't have all the time sitting and staring at the pretty birds and stuff like that. And then I studied hospitality in Arusha in Tanzania, and worked more based in town. So working for a sort of facilities management company, restaurants and gymnasiums, and so kind of honed in on the hospitality skills, but used every opportunity to go and explore all the parks in northern Tanzania. So we've got the Serengeti, we've got Mikumi, Tarangire, and the Ngorongoro crater. So it was weekend expeditions and sometimes week-long camping trips. And then there was a gap where I travelled to UK. I lived there for a while, and then I lived and worked in New Zealand for a year and a half. And then, Africa was calling again. So I came back and did a short stint in Tanzania, 6 months running another remote camp. And then we got offered, I was with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and we got offered a job out in Makgadikgadi salt pans in Botswana as relief management. And we went there, so it was like a year or 2 year contract. And sort of 12 years later, like Botswana just gripped us, and 12 years later, I'm still involved in the country, and camp management for sort of 3 years while we were in Botswana, including mobile safaris. But it really got to me that all the guides were having all the fun. I was doing stock takes and managing the guest experience, and it was nice in the beginning. It was a nice setting where we were, right on the edge of the salt pans. So it's a stunning location. But I really got jealous at the guides getting all the fun and being out there, and you just had to listen to the tales of what the guests saw and what they saw. So I made a decision to do my guiding license, which was through a company called Okavango Guiding School, which is now the African Guide Academy. So right in the heart of the Okavango Delta, an amazing concession, and it's a completely immersive nature guide course. And I did that. We had our first baby, 2015, and then I went into full-time guiding and managing film camps and locations. It was pretty much from the hate of stock takes that forced me out again into nature, and to be out there full time. And having a daughter, we couldn't really stay in a remote camp in the Makgadikgadi, which is it's got seriously extreme temperatures, hot and cold either side. It's hard enough to survive as an adult, never mind having a youngster aboard. So
right.
My wife moved into town. We settled there into Maun. And I ran mobile safaris and then started guiding.
Amazing. Yeah. So it sounds like now you've kind of transitioned more into leading these safaris, setting up camps for film crews. I personally haven't gone on a safari yet, but hopefully I will someday. My understanding is that your safaris, the way that you put them out there and sell them, it's more than just like a game drive. It's a whole transformational experience for your guests. What does that look like, and what makes it special? Right.
So it's become quite a standard practice, especially in the lodges that I found. It's you're out in the morning, you're on a game drive, you come back, you rest in camp on a game drive, and everyone's sort of chasing off their checklist
Right.
of what they
Got
want
a
to see.
cheetah today, got a lion, got a giraffe.
Exactly, and it's usually around the predators, the big cats, apex predators, which is great. I mean, everyone that
Mm.
visits Africa, it's the hunt that you want to go after them and find them and say you've seen them because you saw them on Savage Kingdom on National Geographic or one of the other documentaries, and that's fantastic. But I like to try and slow down and give a more holistic approach to where we are, why we're there, or how's the habitat formed around us, how those animals are interacting with the environment, and how we can reconnect with nature just by slowing down and paying attention and using more of our senses. We've come away from using our sense of smell apart from just when we eat, and using our hearing. So we'll go through different exercises on the safari to try and reconnect those senses and just to create a more holistic approach to being out in the wild. So it's not all about rushing to the different sightings. We really try and focus on connecting to the tracks. We'll do some tracking animals and find out why they're moving in different ways and where they're going. What do those movements mean? They may be, on a certain side of the Delta or the Kalahari had late rainfall, so that grass is now sweeter. So you can try and figure out that, the zebras are all moving into that location. And behind the zebras is going to be lions. So you'll get your opportunity to photograph the lions and spend time with them. We look at the dynamics of the zebra herd. Why are they like that? Why, where's the different groups, the different harems that are being looked after by the male? And basically I just try and slow down and get everyone to reconnect. A lot of it's hearing as well. We'll stop and listen to the bush and work out where things are and what birds are calling, and the guidebooks and textbooks are only ever going to teach so much. Our powers of observation are the rest. So that's what I try and bring across in my safaris. And from a photographic point of view, it's also getting to know the subject, the animal behavior, is a very big part of that. So the deeper we can sort of dive into the animal behavior and movements and body language, and it just creates better pictures and gives a better experience overall.
I was gonna say, that entire approach in my mind is always going to lead to a much better photography, because people are going to have a much more personal connection, have a better understanding of why things are happening the way they're happening. I mean, it's a very naturalist approach, a more holistic approach to leading a workshop or a safari. And I'm curious, did you arrive to kind of wanting to create that sort of experience out of frustration with how other people were doing it? Or did it come from you saw that it was an opportunity that other people had been asking for? How did you kind of come to the idea that this might be a different way or a better way of doing it?
So when I did my guide course, my sort of standard nature guide course, I went back 2 years later and I did my trails course. So we get taught to use rifles and walk with rifles, and then lead guided walks, guided trails. And that just absolutely resonated with me. So generally we'll be on a game drive on a Land Cruiser, which has a 4.2 litre diesel engine, and that's what you hear a lot of the 3 hours that you're out, or the 4 hours that you're out. But when you're on a walking safari, it's approach, view, and retreat without the animal seeing you. Gives you a whole different feeling. And when you're on foot, obviously we go back to our sort of primal instincts of how we used to be in the wild, and your senses just go on super alert, because you are now essentially the prey.
Right.
It's not that we want the animals to come and eat us, and we take every precaution to give all the animals space, but you have that deeper connection back to the earth. So I can't always do walking safaris, but I would wanted to take that approach of the walking safari, where you stop and you look at the, you could look at a meter squared or meter, 2 meters squared of bush and interpret what's happening there and find what insects are there and how they are connected into the environment. And you stop and you smell plants and you taste fruits and you listen to the bird calls, and certain bird calls will alert you to predator activity or a buffalo hiding behind the bushes, for example. So taking that sort of holistic approach of a walking safari and trying to incorporate that into a photographic safari from vehicles or on foot. When we're in Zimbabwe and Mana Pools, we do a lot of walking on foot and approaching animals. So you get that kind of that feeling of being on foot with big animals. So yeah, that's kind of, it wasn't really out of frustration of other people operating like they are, but I do feel there's a need or a want of people to reconnect to nature. We've kind of gone to the top of the scale and created all these wonderful buildings and cars and technology and all of that. And what we saw in the camp that we ran in Makgadikgadi was there was no internet in that camp. A lot of the camps now have internet, but we saw this. People arrive from New York or London, and they would be quite stressed and tense obviously from the travel, etc. But then the detox from the Western world would set in, and after 3 days, you could see this just completely different person leaving camp, and ready for the next adventure, and completely disconnected from their phone and the internet, and that kind of that feeling of people leaving more relaxed and reconnected to something that they didn't know they were missing, but they found again. That reconnection to nature and space is sort of the foundation of where I want to go.
I love that. Yeah, it sounds like your approach to leading these trips is obviously going to emphasize more of a storytelling aspect in the photography, in terms of like you said, you understand the whole ecology of what's happening. You have insects and you have birds and you have big game and you have zebras, and like they're all interconnected. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how this emphasis on immersive storytelling and also mentoring plays a role in your safaris, and how you help your participants move beyond just getting snapshots and start to see wildlife in more meaningful ways.
Right. Okay. So a lot of the storytelling that we try and do is getting to know the subject that we're photographing. So the more that you understand about the subject and its habitat, the more we're going to get an emotional connection with that animal. So, for example, if we're we pull up to a sighting, let's use a leopard. Everyone wants to go and see a leopard. We find a leopard, and the cats sleep a hell of a lot during the day. So a leopard, he's moving around at night or in the twilight hours. That's when he hunts, and his camouflage is most effective. So now we want to tell everything we can about that leopard. So watching its body language, learning its habits of when it's going to move. We can kind of assess, is it worth time, good time spent waiting for this leopard to come down the tree, or are we going to go and look for something else? Generally, I would vote that we stay and we wait. So, bring your Kindle if you have to, or a book. So then there's the aspect of working the sighting. We're going to try and get as many different angles of the animal as possible. Low angle photography, if it works, obviously it doesn't work with a leopard in a tree. But once that leopard comes down, we try and get low angle photography, and that amplifies the subject. So it puts the subject in the absolute forefront of the frame, and then creates this more emotional connection with the viewer who's looking at that photograph. So we want to tell the story of that leopard. How is it living? Has it got scars on its face from a fight? Is it a male? Is it a female? Is it a cub that's waiting for its mother to come back from a hunt? What are some of the hardships that it's gone through? Can we see any of that? Photographing it any subject in different light will also bring out different emotions in the viewer, and different postures of that animal as it's moving through the bush or hunting or anything like that. There's always a story to tell, and just stepping back and doing an environmental portrait is we start there. Let's start telling you where the animal is, and then zoom in onto its finer features and continue from there. But
one of the things you just said struck me as something worth talking more about. You mentioned that the quality of light or the direction of light or the angle of light can have a huge impact on the emotional impact of the final image. And I found that for new photographers, that's something that doesn't always come naturally in terms of understanding those differences and how different types of light can impact an image. Can you talk a little bit about how that works in the type of photography that you're doing?
So it's very good question. So the way light impacts the shot is ultimately going to determine everything about not everything, but a lot of the emotion that's in that picture. You've got, obviously we try and get a lot of our photography in that sort of blue hour, the half an hour before sunrise and half an hour after, probably about an hour after that. And depending on the time of year, especially in Botswana, after sort of 10, 12 years of seeing the different seasons and the different light, you get to know what light is going to work at what time. And Botswana's weather is pretty standard across the years, most years. So you know that we're going to get sort of very harsh light starting from August, September, October, sort of from 8:30, even 8 o'clock in the morning. You can't really photograph anymore without a heat haze. The winter light is cooler, and the light just in the wet season hasn't got as much dust, so it's a lot cleaner. So all of these impact the final image in terms of grain, color, temperature, and how it affects the resulting image is, well, in every aspect, really. A warm light is going to create a softer emotion, whereas as the light gets harsher, we'll try some overexposure, high key photography, which looks more elegant and crisp, if you like. So, and then all these different scenarios, the different outcomes of the pictures will then fit into, when you print your pictures, fit into different aspects of your house and your decor when you put them up, different energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's well said. I know I personally I'm gravitated a lot towards blue hour myself, especially in the desert. I just love photographing in the desert in blue hour because, especially if it's super clean, no clouds, you get that bounce light off the atmosphere down onto the landscape. It's super soft. There's not a lot of contrast. It's super, super easy to edit.
Exactly.
Really clean. You got really nice tone. It's really easy to do color separation in the subjects, and so I think for me, blue hour is super underrated.
Yeah, and I mean yourself as a landscape photographer, you're up early to capture that, and we try and do the same on safari. We listening during the night, and as soon as the lion's roaring, we're sort of sitting up bolt right, trying to get the direction of where that lion is, so we've got something to photograph in that first half an hour or hour. So yeah, we try and get those sort of predator moments in the first hour, and then kind of slow down and then reconnect to figure out what's going on, in the rest of the bush and what else we can photograph. But my favorite light is sort of towards the end of the rainy season, where it's been cleaned. So we're talking about sort of March, April in the Okavango and the Kalahari so you've got this beautiful clean light because it's rained recently, but you still got the dramatic clouds in the sky. The building up of the last thunderstorms, and the bushes. The bush is nice and green. There's a lot of color. There's butterflies. The last migrant birds are still there. It's just, that's why I run one of my safaris at the beginning of April, and Botswana has blue skies for a lot of the year, so probably about 8-9 months. So there's only a few months with clouds, and that time at the end of March, April, you can really get some dramatic skies in your shots and your environmental portraits, and then the clean light to go with it. It's magic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, maybe walk us through a typical day on safari, both lodge based and also a mobile camp. What could photographers expect in terms of pace, light, and wildlife encounters when they go on safari with you? Sure.
So both have advantages and one or two maybe disadvantages. Depends how you look at it. But I'll kick off with sort of a typical day in a lodge safari environment. Lodges, of course, are more stringent on their timekeeping. They've got a complement of staff permanent staff to look after, and it's just easier if everything runs on a sort of clockwork schedule. So you've got obviously more permanent accommodation options in lodges, usually based around a type of tent accommodation on a base level, and then ranging in ranges of luxury from having air conditioning and Wi-Fi in your rooms to sort of a basic tent on a platform, but all comfortable and warm enough and safe enough too. So you'll get woken up in the lodge around 5 to 5:30. We've got this sort of half an hour variance in Botswana because we're close to the Tropic of Capricorn. So 5 in summer and 5:30 in winter. Get woken up with a nice hot cup of coffee and then walk down to the main area and go and have your sort of breakfast and another coffee, get all your gear together and head off with your guide. And the lodge guides do have the advantage of knowing the predator movements and the animal movements in their local area. So there's, each lodge will have anywhere from 3 to 5 vehicles going out in the morning, and they'll try and spread the guests between the activities. So in Botswana, we offer the mokoro activities, so the traditional sort of dugout canoes. So you sit on there and, like in Venice, so you'll have a polar pushing you along the reed beds, completely quiet and relaxed, and you really immerse yourself into the environment there and sort of have a hippo eye view of the environment. And then some guys will go out on a boating activity if that's offered from the lodge, and everyone else on a game drive and game walks if they are available. Everything's pretty much controlled by the time. So you're out at sort of 6 o'clock and sort of back in camp at 10 o'clock, 10:30, and you may be on a schedule to have a brunch, and in which case you have your brunch and go and rest until sort of 3:30, go and rejuvenate, charge all your equipment, do some editing. A lot of the camps will have quite a big solar farm these days. It used to be generators, now it's all solar farm, but all big enough to handle charging capabilities. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of them have internet now as well. And then high tea at sort of 3:30, 4 o'clock, out again on the game drive, and then depending if the lodge is in a private concession or a game reserve, will depend on the time that you come back. Generally, the game reserves want you back at just after sunset, maybe half an hour after sunset at latest. And if you're in a private concession, you have the leniency to go and sort of do a night drive and do some spotlighting and trying to find some of those nighttime creatures, which for photography is probably the biggest challenge. Trying to
right
focus and illuminate these creatures without disturbing their eyesight and disturbing hunting and encounters and stuff like that. So it's a good challenge at night. And so your mobile safaris are more adventurous. They also range from top of the range luxury 5-star sort of Persian carpets and antique furniture in the bush to very basic, put up your own tent, cook your own food, but you've got someone there with you. I try my safari is in the middle. So we have mirror tents. We've got charging facilities just from the vehicles. It's enough that we've got these inverters in the vehicles that you can charge all your camera equipment from. But to just highlight what a mobile safari is, at least in Botswana, there's allocated campsites within the game reserves that are, we call them mobile camping sites. There's no water, there's no fences, there's no electricity, nothing's there. Just a sign to say that this is your campsite. And the team will come in a day before with a truck and sort of a team of 7, 8, and they will build a camp in a day and have everything ready for you to arrive the next day. And we'll stay in that location for 3 days, and then we'll go off to an island or do something in between. The camp gets packed up and moved to another location. And then the beauty of it is that there was probably no one there for a while before we get there. So we kind of just plonking ourselves in the middle of the bush, right in the middle of the territories of the predators and all the animals that are there. And when we leave, we take everything with us. So you're comfortable enough in the sense that you have, we do flush toilets, it's sort of a canvas bag hanging on a 3-meter pole, which allows you to flush your loo, and we take all our rubbish with, and that's literally, leave no trace behind is the ethics behind that. What a mobile safari does give you the flexibility of is we're not bound by those camp times. So we can, and we generally do, we take a lunch with us. We don't know if we're going to eat it out or not. But if we find something and something's happening, we'll also get up early, we'll head out, but we've got a lunch with us, we've got our coffee box with us. And it's just a full day of adventure. We see what we find. We're in this location where the advantage over the lodges is they still have to drive sort of their 10 minutes to half an hour to really get into the thick of the action for the most part. And we're there, we're right in this territories of all these animals. So that's my preferred kind of adventure style safari, because you're being a bit more holistic by being surrounded by nature as opposed to be surrounded by buildings and other tents and nowadays Wi-Fi signals and stuff like that.
Right.
So similar in the sense that we're up early and we're back a little bit later than the lodges, because we've got that flexibility again. Yeah, the whole thing comes down to leaving no trace. So a more eco-friendly kind of option. And we get to see different locations. So as I said, we do 3 days in one spot. And depending on the itinerary, we might go and do an adventure out and stay on an island and just take our own tents with us, and then come back and we find the camp completely rebuilt in another location. So we really get to explore a whole different side of the park if we want to. And the safari we run in April explores 3 different parks. So we do 3 nights, 3 nights, 3 nights, all the way down to the Chobe River. So it's good fun. And I mean, the most exciting thing we've happened on one of those mobiles in the camp is woken up with lions killing a zebra just right by the sort of the main table, and we woke up with we had the whole night of lions just ripping this poor zebra apart and all the noise that lions make. But of course in the morning no one could get out of their tents, no one could have their coffee, no one could do anything, and we didn't have to move for most part of that morning because we had 15 lions just sitting there, and we could the guests were just lying in bed watching this spectacle of lions sort of chewing through this zebra. So it made logistics a little bit difficult, but we got through it. They eventually moved off to have a drink, and we scurried about to get out of camp. So I mean, that's the kind of things that can happen, but you're in your tent and you're safe, and it's just an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I feel like some people listening might be like, what do you mean it's safe? That sounds incredibly dangerous. So what is it about that type of encounter that doesn't really make you worry?
Well, so the rules that we have, and we obviously go through a safety briefing once we're in camp. And the number one rule is just keep your zip closed on your tent. So you've got sort of a 2.5-3 meter high, 2.5 meter sort of high tent. You've got a zip going there, and the zip's going across the bottom as well. So number one rule is stay in your tent and keep your zip closed. And as long as you're in your tent, I mean, it's sort of thick ripstop canvas, so there's nothing going to get through that.
Right,
So,
and lions are probably like, I got this zebra. I'm not gonna mess with that tent. I'd rather just eat the zebra.
yeah, I mean, I guess they can definitely smell us, and they know there's something in there. But I mean, we're scroll and skinny and tall, and there's not much meat on us. And yeah, zebra is much tastier, much more interesting than one of us. So I mean, we are aware of safety precautions, and we take all the precautions we can. But yeah, I mean, it's such a privilege to see, apex predators right next to you like that, and to hear the commotion. I mean, we didn't get any sleep that night because it sort of happened around midnight, and then it was just 15 lions shouting at each other until the sun came up, and then the two males. I mean, I'll never forget it. They just sat. It was winter, and they sat right next to the fire, and they let it out. They just roared and roared and roared, and you feel that sort of reverberating through your chest as you're lying there.
Were you able to get any images of them sitting by the fire?
I've got some in the hard drive somewhere. Yeah, I'm sure I can dig those out sort of through the fly screen of the tent.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so there's been several sort of things like that, and it always happens on a mobile experience.
Right.
As I said, you're just in the heart of the action. But yes, safety wise, we position ourselves as guides. Generally, there's one or two guides, sometimes three. So we'll position our tents in close proximity to the guest tents, and then the staff kind of do a horseshoe shape around the other side. So we've kind of got this lager, if you will, with a fire in the middle. So yeah, a rare occasion you wake up with lions outside, but generally speaking, you get your coffee delivered in the morning, and everything's been cleared out of camp if there was any problems.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that a lot of your photography is now more and more closely tied to conservation issues. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about which organizations you're supporting and why and how.
Okay, all right. So to give a bit of a backstory on that, we were living in Botswana, so from 2012 to 2019, and our second daughter was due to be born in January 2020, and we'd sort of planned to start up my own travel agency and stay fixed in Botswana for the next forever, really. I guess it hooked us so strong. And then our daughter was born, then COVID hit. She was born in Germany, and COVID hit, and then we got stuck. And luckily we had the support of my wife's parents, and sort of by the time COVID settled down, we had already got our oldest daughter into school here, and the roots started going down. But during that COVID period, I was feeling pretty hopeless. I was stuck here. There was reports of poaching and things happening on the ground where as I said, I was feeling pretty useless. Couldn't do anything about it, and couldn't be in the bush either. So it was then that I said, okay, well, I need to dig through the hard drives and see if we can do something to start raising money for these conservation programs that we're working tirelessly to keep everything alive and keep things going. So I sort of started with the idea of selling calendars, and it's kind of gone from there into fine art prints. But it was the first time that I'd really given my photography any purpose. Before that, it was being out in nature for the most part, and finding there's a program that I'd heard about 2018. It's a program by Botswana Botswana-Predator Conservation Trust, and it's called the BioBoundary Project, and basically started to stop wild dogs, African wild dogs, from venturing into human areas, because they pick up canine distemper, they pick up rabies, and it can sort of eliminate a whole population.
Oh, right, sure.
So this project was aiming at identifying the different animal chemical signals in urine and feces that would stop animals moving across a certain area, and hence creating a bio-boundary. The project's headed up by Dr. Peter Apps, and he's been at it for years, I think 10 or 11 years now. And while the research is still going on the wild dogs, he has found and managed to separate these different chemicals of other predators, and has made a huge leap in protecting livestock. Now, if you protect livestock from being predated, from predators, you're going to protect the predators in the end from the retaliation killings. So I feel that supporting a conservation program that's aimed at helping people mitigate this sort of human-wildlife conflict is the way forward. And this project just really spoke to me. So he sets up these vials, and in the vial, so a low cost vial, he's got the chemicals of, let's say, a male leopard territory marker. So using camera traps, he's isolated these marking areas, and then he's gone and collected the scent from those marking areas, and then separated. There's like, I don't know, something like 10,000 different chemicals in a urine sample from a male leopard or from wild dogs. So he's gone through and separated each of these, and then tested them back into the wild at these sites to find out which one repels the leopard. So you can imagine it's years and years of setting up camera traps, going out into the field, getting no results, and then bam, he got this one camera footage of it. It's a leopard. He walks up, he smells it, looks at this vial, he smells it, gives it a sniff, Fleming grimace, turns around and
I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm out. There's a bigger, stronger leopard here, and I don't want to meet him, basically. And just using that one chemical, he's able to put these little vials on. You've got a herd of goats, maybe 100 goats. You put these vials on sort of 25 of your goats, and they eliminate a millionth of this scent. Every couple of minutes, and it stops them from being eaten. The jackals, the hyenas, everything just backtracks because they know a big male leopard is going to sort them out if they come into contact. So that's the main project I've been supporting for the last couple of years, and it's continuously making breakthroughs with that science and finding these new chemicals and new ways of mitigating the conflict, because as humans are spreading out and we're taking more land and we're still sort of nomadic pastoralists in a lot of Botswana. We keep cattle, there's goats, there's sheep, and that's people's livelihoods. That a lot of the rural people rely on that, not just for food, but selling them at markets, and that's their annual income. And when you're looking at an adult goat costing about $60-$70, and you're having 4 of those killed in a month, as the farmer, you're going to go after the predator that's doing that, because it's found this tasty little morsel. McDonald's is coming to town. Let's hit it. And then they don't stop once they get a taste for it. So that's a project very close to my heart, and I think very worthwhile supporting, because it's if we can look after the people, we can look after the animals. Basically, is the old sort of conservation theme of I wouldn't say old, but it's just looking after the animals and individual species. It's maybe a thing that's gone into the past now. We need to look at the bigger picture, including the communities, including their livelihoods, and make it worthwhile for them to keep the wildlife around. otherwise it will, slowly disappear.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's a really awesome idea, and I feel like that approach to conservation is kind of the way of the future. You're actually the third person I've talked to this year that has just trying to fund similar types of initiatives. So it's really cool to hear that that's something you're doing. How are you getting the word out about like the fundraising activities? It's hard to sell prints these days. So like, what are you doing to generate interest in the work?
Right. So, this is the challenge, isn't it?
Yes.
Before I arrived in Germany, my computer experience and my online experience was literally editing my pictures, sending emails, and that was about all I knew how to do on a computer. So I've had to go back to sort of groundwork and learn everything, from the ground up, including social media marketing. I'm actually on a course with one of your previous guests that you had on, Zoe Hilgemark.
Yeah, sure.
So I've taken the plunge and doing a long-term course with her to figure out how to get all this stuff out. My first print shop that I started a couple of years back, I learned how to build my own website on Shopify and do all the products. And once it was built, it took me forever to work all that stuff out. And once it was built, I thought, well, okay, well, that's it. Now the sales.
I'm good. Nope. Turns out that's not the case.
No. So I was a bit naive on that front. To be honest, I'm still working all that out. So currently sort of rebuilding my website and focusing on the SEO fronts. I do with this last trip I did to Botswana a month ago or so. I did some pro bono work for Botswana-Predator conservation. So I went out and photographed them all in the field. And but in terms of getting it out there, it's social media. I'm starting a blog, and hopefully this will all be up and running properly by the time this airs. But in the process of working all that out, I'm definitely not one to sort of put my face all over social media but I need to figure that out as well. So it's a challenge. It's difficult of getting out there. My main sort of outlet at the moment is social media, Facebook and Instagram, and working on growing that audience and focusing on just passing on as much education as I can.
That's one of the reasons I love doing the podcast is like I can shine a light on things that I think are worthy of people paying attention to. Whereas I feel like right now what people are doing is, they figure out some kind of formula or strategy or way to gamify the social media using reels and things of that nature. And, like they're drawing all of this positive attention on something that they're doing that's really like adds no value to anyone's life except for their pocketbook. And to me, that's frustrating. It's like the people who are doing really cool stuff to not just for themselves, like those people need all the help they can get. So I love to be able to do that through the podcast.
Yeah, and it's a great source. And you've done so many now. That's incredible that you've kept on going at it. And it's a great outsource for people to get heard. But you're right. Like the social media thing, it's been a sort of a love-hate relationship because you're stuck between trying to figure out the algorithm to try and stay real to your purpose and cause. And I think that's also why I've kind of gone down the road of wanting to do more blogging and just get some natural traffic through to the website, where I'm not reliant on trying to please the algorithm and try and keep up with the Joneses as such, and put all these trending songs and it frustrates me to the moon and back. Especially with two kids kicking around your ankles, you don't really have time to sit there and play all these games of editing reels and for what?
I know.
If we can create like proper educational material that's going to help and do something, then rather go down that road.
I love that. Well, so if someone's listening and they could only take away one single thing from your story and your photography, what would you want it to be?
I guess, getting out and connecting to nature is the biggest thing, probably. But also that, understanding that each and every one of us has got a responsibility to educate, preserve, do what we can to look after what's left. We're growing and spreading so fast as a species, that there's things going unnoticed, in terms of disappearings and small extinctions and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing is just we all got a responsibility, whether we nature photographers, wildlife photographers, whatever. We're custodians of nature, and we need to look after it. We need to get out into it and let it heal our problems and just reconnect with it. Yeah.
I love it. So my last question for you, Devon, who do you recommend for the podcast? Who are some people that our listeners should learn more about?
I've been working with a few photographers back in Botswana, in Maun. So those are, the guys that I've looked up to, that I've worked with. So one is a good friend of mine, Steve Stockel, and he's actually, the co-host, the guide, and the owner of the safari company where I do the operation in May in the mobile safaris. He's been guiding for 35 years in the Delta, so he knows it like the back of his hand. Great sense of humor and great photographer as well. His business partner, Daniel Kraus, second or third generation Botswana, so long-term roots in Botswana. Great photographer as well. Fantastic guide. Guts Swanepoel is a guy I worked for. He runs pangolin photo safaris. I don't know if you've come across that name. They run safaris. Started off just running sort of boat safaris on the Chobe River, and now they've expanded their itineraries. So through the Kalahari, they do safaris now to Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Guts Swanepoel, he's got a wealth of experience in wildlife photography and different regions, not just Africa, but worldwide. And then the two people that work for him, a husband and wife couple, Sabine and Charles Stolz. They've been working for pangolin for a long time, and they've both got unique photographic styles. But because they're out there every day, their photographic skills are just honed in completely. And one guy I've really looked up to my whole life, and sort of was one of the inspirations to carry on with wildlife photography, is a gentleman named Hannes Lochner. He's put out a couple of photo books, but his photographic style is I've never seen anything like it. Very down to earth wildlife photographer, but very unique, captures very unique images, and across a range of subjects. So those are the guys that I've looked up to, learned from, and would be interesting guests for you.
Awesome. Well, Devon, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for all of the really amazing work you're doing for conservation. I thank you from everyone.
Yeah, Matt, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And great to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Huge thanks to Devon Jenkin for such a thoughtful and inspiring conversation. I really appreciated his take on how storytelling, conservation, and deep personal connection to wild places can elevate both our photography and our lives. Just a reminder that this week's episode is sponsored by Luminar Neo, an editing platform that I've been recommending more and more, especially for photographers who feel overwhelmed by the traditional Lightroom workflow. Luminar Neo has super intuitive interface, but it also packs a punch under the hood. You can use it as a standalone editor or as a Lightroom plugin for specific tasks that you might not feel comfortable using in Lightroom. Whether you're just getting into post-processing or you're a seasoned pro looking for a faster, simpler solution, check it out. I'll put a link in today's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the podcast, please consider joining us on Patreon. You get access to over 250 bonus episodes, early releases, and some behind-the-scenes content, and every dollar helps to keep the show running, ad light, and community focused. Thanks for stopping in, collaborating with us, and listening. See you next week.